Several years have passed since Clara became a keeper. She had learned to live with a double life. During the day she was seen in the village streets, where she helped the villagers and told stories about her archaeological research, and at night she retired to her forest home. There, passing through a portal, she monitored the state of the mirror world to maintain the delicate balance between light and darkness. But one day everything changed. One night while in the mirror world, Clara felt the ground beneath her feet shake. The silver trees, normally silent, began to emit a low rumbling sound, and in the distance, a dark crack appeared in the sky, with thick smoke billowing out of it. When Clara reached the castle where the obelisk was located, she found that the crystal that provided the balance was cracked. Its glow was fading, and cracks began to appear around the obelisk, as if the world itself was crumbling from within. She realized at once that this was no accident. Someone or something had disturbed the order. In one of the castle towers, Clara found a new scroll that hadn't been there before. It looked fresh, as if it had just been written. It said, "Light blinds, darkness destroys. Seek truth where two paths meet. In the heart of chaos lies the enemy." Clara remembered the stories of the dark entity that Edgar the alchemist had accidentally summoned into this world. He had locked it deep underground, but it seemed to have begun to break free. Clara had no choice. To recover the crystal and save both worlds, she needed to find the entity and understand its true intentions. Using the maps found in the castle, she traveled to the heart of the mirror world, the Valley of Shadows. The way there was dangerous. The world was becoming increasingly unstable. Bridges were collapsing, trees were turning to stone, and the light was growing fainter. Even the shadows that had only watched Clara before were now beginning to attack. Along the way, she met one of the beings of the mirror world, an old woman in a silver cloak who called herself Ivy. She knew more about the entity than anyone else. "This isn't just darkness," Ivy said as they sat around the fire. "It's a part of Edgar. He created her by accident, putting his fears and doubts into this world. Now she wants to go back to where she came from." "Back?" Clara wondered. "To our world?" The old woman nodded. "If she breaks free, your world will disappear. You must stop her." When Clara reached the center of the Valley of Shadows, she found a huge black chasm. Within it pulsed a living darkness, from which came a voice distorted but strangely familiar. "Have you come? So soon?" The voice was similar to Edgar's, but with a sense of ancient malice in it. "You want the balance back? Then why did you break it?" "I didn't break anything," Clara replied, clutching the old amulet Ivy had given her. "Yes, you did. You returned to your world and left this one to die. Balance requires sacrifice. You should have stayed here." Clara realized the entity was manipulating her, but the words still hurt her. She did know that her return could affect stability, but she believed the two worlds could coexist. The entity burst from the abyss, taking the form of a dark giant with burning eyes. Clara used her amulet to create a shield, but the entity's attacks grew stronger and stronger. Then she remembered the words of the scroll, "Seek the truth where two paths meet." She realized that she must use light and darkness together to win. Clutching the crystal, she directed its energy at the entity. A flash of light illuminated everything around it, but along with it, dark currents erupted from the crystal. Light and darkness collided, forming a vortex that engulfed the entity. The world shook, but the cracks began to disappear. After the victory, Clara felt the strength leave her. The mirror world began to recover, but now she knew that the essence had not been destroyed, only temporarily sealed inside the new crystal. She returned home, but her gaze grew more troubled. Clara realized balance had been restored, but the worlds would no longer be the same. The next day, there was a knock at her door. On the threshold stood a young man she had never seen before. He held a book in his hands and said, "Are you Clara? I am from the mirror world. We must talk." A tall boy of about 25 stood on the threshold. His eyes, deep and shimmering, were reminiscent of the mirror world. They reflected shades of silver and darkness. Clara sensed that this man was clearly not of her world. He was holding an old book, the cover of which was decorated with the same symbols she had seen on the obelisk. "Who are you?" Clara asked, not hiding her surprise. The boy bowed and introduced himself. "My name is Lorien. I am a messenger from the mirror world. You probably think you've saved both worlds, but I'm afraid it's more complicated than it seems." He handed her a book, and Clara immediately recognized the handwriting. It was Edgar Rave's diary, only now it had more entries than the parts she'd read before. How was that possible? She wondered. Lorien looked at her with a slight sadness. "Edgar left this book for the guardians who would come after him. It belongs to you now." That evening, after lighting the candles in her room, Clara began to read. The pages said that the entity she had encountered was but a shard of something more ancient. One of the entries read, "Equilibrium is an illusion. Light and darkness are only two sides of the same force. But if the darkness gains strength, it will find a way to take over both worlds." Lorien, sitting across from her, watched her reaction. "The darkness is already awakening," he said, "and if we don't stop it, both worlds will collapse." "What should I do?" Clara asked. Lorien opened the book to the last page. There was a strange symbol, a circle crossed by lines of light and darkness. "It's called the Seal of Balance," he explained. "It is at the very center of both worlds. Whoever activates it will be able to hold the balance forever. But there's a problem." "What is it?" "The seal can only be activated at the cost of the guardian's life." Clara froze. Lorien explained that the seal is located in a place called the Merge of Realities, where the two worlds come together. To get there, one must pass through both worlds, alternately facing their trials. Clara, not used to backing down, agreed. Lorien offered to accompany her. Their journey began at the forest house. After passing through the mirror, they found themselves back in the mirror world. But now it looked different. The trees and the ground were covered with cracks, and the sky shimmered with strange hues. The first stage was a journey through the territory of light. Here they met creatures Clara had never seen before. Majestic silvery birds emitting a dazzling glow, and spirit-like guards who checked their intentions. They reached the Temple of Light, where Clara was to prove her resolve. The guards placed a mirror in front of her, showing her deepest fears. She saw the village destroyed and her grandfather calling for her, but she could not return. She saw her choices destroying both worlds. "It's an illusion," Lorien whispered. "Don't give in to it." Clara closed her eyes and remembered why she was here. When she opened them again, the illusion was gone, and the guards let them pass on. The dark part of the path awaited them. Here everything was distorted. Sounds sounded as if from far away, and shadows moved as if they had a will of their own. At the center of the territory of darkness was the labyrinth of shadows, where Clara would have to find her way without Lorien's help. "The darkness speaks to you," he warned. "Don't listen to it. She will show you what you want, but it is a trap." Inside the labyrinth, shadows encircled her, whispering the voices of her friends and family. They begged her to come back, saying none of this made sense. But Clara remembered Edgar's words, Light and darkness are two sides of the same force. She realized she didn't have to reject the darkness, but embrace it. Closing her eyes, she focused on her inner light, and the maze disappeared, leaving before her the path to the merging realities. At the center of both worlds was a giant circular hall, its walls decorated with symbols glowing with silver and black fire. In the center of the hall was the seal of equilibrium. Lorien stopped. "This is where I cannot go with you. This is your way." Clara approached the seal, feeling her heart beating faster and faster. "If I activate it," she thought, "I can save both worlds. But I'll lose myself." Her hands trembled. Suddenly she heard a familiar voice. It was Edgar's voice. "Equilibrium isn't just a sacrifice. It's a choice. Find your way." Clara realized that she had to use both light and darkness, but not let either one take over. She put all her power into the seal, and the hall lit up brightly. As the light faded, Clara woke up in the woods near her home. The seal had been activated, and the balance was restored. But from that day on, her life changed. She felt that she no longer belonged completely to her world. She could see the cracks between realities, hear the voices of those who lived in the mirror world. Lorien stayed with her to help protect the balance. They knew a new threat would come sooner or later, but now they were ready to face it together.